In this video, we're going to build a very simple and minimalistic task manager using Notion. It's going to look something like this. This is my personal task manager that I use for my operating system, which acts as my second brain. And in this case, you can easily add a new task using a button. Let's say make video about Notion tasks today. That's it. I can select the project where it needs to be in, which we will not cover in this video. Can select when it needs to be done. Let's say it's today, and I can select if it's a work or a personal project. In this case, it's a personal project. So as you can see, when I clicked on the Add New Task button, it also showed up in this Today tab. And it probably also will show up in the Upcoming tab, or maybe the Someday tab, or the Unfinished tab. And I will also show how you can create these different tabs using the single database for tasks that you will get. But this is already with some content in there. I'm going to show you how to build something like this from scratch. Let's go to Content G, which is my playground where I can actually create some new things. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create an empty database, because we need to collect all the tasks in the database, whether they are upcoming tasks, whether they are completed tasks. They need to have a place somewhere in Notion, which is the database structure, and you need to create a new database for it. I like to name my database is something like this, tasks.db, where the DB stands for database. And I also like to give them a certain icon so that I can actually know that it's a database. Let's pick this one. I don't think this is the most pretty icon, but it makes sense. It's a database, so we know what it is. So for the system, we need to create a column with tasks, task. You can change the icon or not, whatever you want. Let's pick this one. We need to create a date, a due date. I'm going to name that when, which means when it needs to happen. And we need to create a multi-select thing, which is either personal or work in my case. Let's pick this thing, and then also create a section called personal or work. And we need to create, of course, a checkbox, which I'm going to not name, because we're going to basically do it something like this. And well, this view, you don't need to matter too much what you do in this view, because we will link this database in the tasks homepage, where you can actually tweak the styling and hide some columns if you don't want to have them in there. So for this case, I'm not going to add more categories. It's just showing how you can create something very, very simple. But if you want to, you can create all kinds of categories that you want. You can create maybe a project category, where you can actually link the task to maybe a project section. But that's a little bit more complex and a little bit more detailed, which I will not cover in this video. So, but we have the task database, and the next thing that we are going to do is we're going to create a new page. And we're going to name that page tasks. So, and what I typically also like to do is I like to connect the database into the page where it needs to be in. So in this case, I'm going to link to page tasks database, so that I at least know, okay, do not touch this or things will break. Maybe have like a nice thing like this. So the other thing that I typically do with these kinds of things, I make the width a little bit larger, like the full width, and then I start creating the buttons and the section where you can actually see the task. But to do that, I typically create a call out, and then we create a button. We say create task. We're not going to fill in the rest for this. That's something that we will do later. So it will give this mark, but yeah, still we're going to pick up that later. So I'm going to create another call out, and here I'm going to link the database. So you need to have the linked view of database, and then I can actually select the database that I want to have. It's already in here. If you don't see it, just type in tasks db, and this is where the naming convention like the db really comes in, because as you can see, I've also called the page tasks, but the database is also called tasks, right? So those two are intertwined, but by giving it like a separate icon and the db, I can make a clear distinction of what it actually needs to entail. So as you can see, I can see all views here that I also have in my master database. And I can see the database title. I don't necessarily want to have the database title, so I'm going to hide that. And I'm going to create a tab with today. Let's change the icon to something like a calendar. Let's stick with this one. Today, and I want to have like the task, I want to have the when, I want to have the persona, but I don't really like this thing in the like the last column, so I can drag it over here, and I can basically change the view however I want. So for example, if I don't want the when in this view, I can say hide, and it will not show. I don't necessarily want that because I want to know when a task is done, but for the today tab, you can also maybe close it, because we can automatically set these tasks to today. So I can change the views however I want. In this case, it will not change in the master database, which is pretty cool. So we have a today tab, but we don't have any tasks yet. What are we going to do? So if I create on this button, it will not show a task yet, because first I need to make a template for the task creation. So I click on this button here, and I need to create a new template. And I'm going to leave this as open as much. So you can also say task name, but especially when you have multiple tasks, and you want to like quickly add new tasks, you will always need to delete that first. So I'm just going to leave that open so I can directly type in the task that I want. So you can add some information here. Maybe you can say, let's call out some info or notes, maybe notes, and maybe create a bulleted list like 1, 2, 3, and then I'm just going to quickly add those, whatever you want. But every time you add a new task, you see these things in the like, yeah, you can add these things. I typically don't do these kind of things. I only want to see like the thing that I have in here. So, but that's that. We've done it now. Now the next thing we need to do is actually tie that into this button. So you have to select an action. So we have a new action, add page to. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a page whenever somebody clicks this button to the master database, which is tasks db. And here you can see as empty, but we don't want to do that. We want to select the template that we just created, which is called new page. And the next thing we want to do is add an action, open page, and then select page edit, because that's the thing that we're going to add. And I'd like to have that in a side peek so that I can actually see also the rest of the task list. Okay. So it's done now. So whenever I create this thing, you can actually see, oh, hey, create video about Notion and tasks. Let's not select anything at all right now. But you can already see that these things are now created here, which is very, very cool. I'm going to delete this one. But still, it does not automatically set a when date. And obviously we want to do that, right? So we want to have a when date so that we can also make multiple tabs, for example, whenever we have things maybe planned in later that they don't show up in the today tab. So to do that, we need to create a filter first. So for the today view, we want to have a filter and select the when, because that's basically when something needs to happen. And we want to have the start date is relative to, so you can do other things here as well. We don't have to do the start date is relative to day, this day. So now you will see all tasks in this view for today. But yeah, as you just saw, we didn't give the task a due date, which means it will not show here. Say for everyone. And I'm going to deselect this. So yeah, let's create a new one. Test. And we're going to set it to today. And now you can actually see the simple task in here. I can select maybe personal or work or whatever. But there is a way to do it automatically. I don't think I will cover that in this video, but because it's a little bit more complex. But what I do want to show you is that I can also basically copy this and duplicate it. For example, I'll say this week, or as I like to call it, someday. And I'm going to change the icon so that we know that it's a different category. And basically we now still have the same view, but with the filter you can actually basically say, okay, it's relative to this month or something, right? So then you should actually see all the tasks that are available in this month, or say after today. So let's say we have tasks that we don't want to plan in today. We can create them somewhere over here. So to demonstrate that, let's create a task. I want to be a millionaire someday by selling cookies. Let's tick a very later date, so 20 November. And now I deselect it, and you can see that it does not show up in the today task because it does not have the filter this day, but it does show up in the someday task because, well, I created the filter of something that was after today. So you can play a little bit around with it. So you can actually say this is maybe something that's unfinished or whatever. So let's create a thing that's duplicate finished. And then we create like the check mark. Let's give it this one. And here maybe we can select the filter of let's delete this filter first, delete filter. So now we see all the tasks, and actually they are unfinished, but we want to see the finished task. So we need to select this thing and then select the checked box. Now you don't see anything yet because we didn't finish a task, but if we select this thing, now it should show up in at least the finished part, but it still shows up here. So let's take a look at that. So now it shows up in the finished part, in the finished tab. But why does it still show up here? Well, main reason is that we did not select a filter for this where things are unchecked. So if we now select the unchecked filter, you can actually see that once a task is unchecked, it does not show up here anymore, and it does show up here. So let's create that again, test 2. Let's pick that for today, and let's also create a test free. Let's also pick that for today. And let's deselect this one. It will not show up anymore here, but it will show up here. So this is a very quick and easy way to create a task system in Notion. There are many different ways where you can build it, and you can play around with it quite a lot. And if you want to, for example, see the archive or see all the tasks, then you simply click on Task Database, and here you can actually see everything that I've ever done or added into the database, if it's done or not, which category it has, when it's created, etc., etc. So there you have it. It's a very simple way to create a task system. And yeah, that's it.